Good morning. Welcome to the Gleaning for the World Pastors Briefing, sponsored by the Gleaning Church Network. I'm Mike Tilley, and today's topic is helping the homeless. And our presenter is Ron Davidson. He's the founder and the president of Gleaning for the World. And you're going to hear some eye-opening information about homelessness in America, and actually some practical tips that would help you and your church have a positive impact on the homelessness issue in your community. There's a question and answer time that'll be available coming up at the end of today's presentation, and you can see there's some tools on the page you're viewing right now, especially over to the right, where you can ask questions live. You can also join the pastor's Facebook group page. There's a link there on the page you're on right now, and actually become a part of a discussion there, not just today, but throughout the month, as we talk about these kinds of issues that are important to you and to your congregation. And of course, Gleaning is playing such a big role in having a positive impact in a lot of these troubled spots. At the end of today's presentation, we actually have a free gift for you, so I hope you'll stay with us all the way to the end, and then I'll give you the information about how you can access the free gift. Doesn't cost you anything, no obligation. We just want to say thank you for participating with us in these. Of course, you know Ron Davidson. Many of you has been in the ministry for 30 plus years as a pastor, and most recently is the head of Gleaning for the World, an organization that impacts 55 different countries every year, $40 million a year in humanitarian aid, and last year alone more than 30,000 people accepted Christ as their personal Savior as a result of the Gleaning for the World ministry. It's all about helping people at their point of need, so that their hearts are open to hear the gospel. And it's just a unique ministry, and it's having an impact all over the world and here in the U.S. And so Ron Davidson has lived this homeless world. He understands it. He's got a powerful testimony he's going to be sharing with you as well. Again, Q&A. Take the opportunity to ask some questions as we go along, and we'll have that Q&A session for you at the end of today's presentation. Right now, we're going to throw it over to Ron Davidson.
I want to welcome you this morning to the pastor's discussion time. The whole purpose of this is to be able to provide up-to-date information to our local pastors so that they can share it with our congregation, so that they can have some scriptural ideas of how to present some of this. So we're trying to give you, as a local pastor, the support and the help that you need to be in ministry to the people in your community. And I greatly appreciate the effectiveness and the commitment that you have to reach people for Christ. Gleaning for the World, as Mike said, reaches about 35,000 new Christians a year by providing the humanitarian care that is needed to local churches worldwide, so they can earn the right to name the name of Christ, which is above every name, so that people can come to know Christ as their personal Savior and grow in their faith. The topic today is a very personal thing for me. It's about the homeless. First of all, let me identify that not every church has the same ministry. Every pastor, every local church has their own identity, their own call of God. They have their own special gifts and graces that they can offer. And there are some that feel more comfortable and are called to reach out in the community to people that are in desperate need. There are others that are doing various kinds of ministry that are very effective, that are God-called. So not everyone is called to do the same thing. I have to admit, and it's a whole chapter in the book that I wrote, and we want you to have a free copy of that so that you can learn more about how this ministry began, how it's developed, how God has been able to use it, and we'll provide information on that for you so that you can get a copy, or multiple copies for your church if you would like. But one of the chapters in it, and it was very difficult for me to be able to write it, but for many years, I have to admit that I saw the homeless. They were not really people to me. I assumed that they were people with severe emotional problems. They were drug addicts. They were alcoholics. They were people who chose to be on the street and live that way. So I did not really stop and give them any time as a pastor to present the gospel, and we're talking about 25 years of ministry of doing that. And so I have to admit to you that I was not comfortable being around the homeless. But for whatever reason, one of the local churches that I was pastoring was near the Hampton Roads area, Hampton Roads of Virginia. And we came up with the idea of reaching out to the homeless by going to the feeding centers. We made beef stew by the buckets. We took used clothing with us. We took winter clothing. It was a cold time of the year. We took toys for children. We really didn't even know who the homeless were. And when, we assumed it would be feeding 50 to 75 people. And when I called the social services in the local community and said, okay, how many homeless do we have in the Hampton Roads area? It was 500 or 600 people. So we went from having to fix beef stew and food and clothing and stuff from 50 people to 500 people. And it was that night that I first really met the homeless and got to know who they were. It was a heartbreaking time for me because I had to look at my own witness and the times that I've walked around and walked by the homeless. But to know who they were changed my whole outlook. And let me identify who the homeless are. Number one, about 1/3 of the homeless are veterans of our military. Some of them are people who would have had emotional disorders and other problems, whether they were in the military or not, but it's a small percentage. Most of the military that are homeless are people who have been in battles, who have been scarred, have a post-traumatic stress syndrome. They're good people that have fought for our country, that went into the military as my son or your children or the children in your church would have as teenagers. But what they saw, what went on in the battles, affected them so much that they simply were not able to return and live in a normal environment. So that's about 1/3 of them. The second group is really difficult. The Huffington Press recently put out a press release, a story, that said that 1 in 30 of our children in the United States are homeless. Now that's an astronomical number, and I wished it wasn't true, but we know that almost half of the 5.6 million homeless are children under 15 years of age. They are there not because they've done anything wrong, not because of their drug or alcohol problems, not because of home issues. They're simply there because their parents have lost their job, have lost their homes, and they're living in the homeless environment. I had a gentleman that recently went on an international trip with me, and he was telling me this story that even though he had a home to live in, he slept on the floor because they just didn't have beds. When it came time to eat, his job was to go out and look in the dumpsters of restaurants and find the food that had been scraped off the plates of the people and bring the food back so his brothers and sisters would have something to eat. Now it's beyond my comprehension that people would have to live this way in the United States. But the reality is there are millions of children who do not have food to eat, who do not have a warm place to sleep, who do not have adequate clothing, who are looked down on by the other students because they don't dress and look like everybody else. If you're homeless, you don't have a place to take a bath, you don't have regular clothing, you may not be as clean as the rest of them, your hair may not be cut fancy like somebody else, and they really do live a tough life if they're able to even go to school. So about 1/3 of them are military, about half of them are homeless, and then I found another group that is probably one of the most difficult for me, along with the children, the veterans. They are women who have children, whose husbands have left them for one reason or another, and the husbands would not pay the alimony, they would not pay the child support, and they would lose their home within 6 months because no payments were made. The banks would take the home over. The furniture is put out on the street for anybody that wants it. They simply live out of the back of old cars, out of alleyways, out of the abandoned buildings. A couple of years ago, and I don't know why this happened, but within a month there were 3 different women that I met just right here in Central Virginia whose husbands would not pay the alimony, would not pay for the house payments. They were living in $500,000, $750,000 homes, living the American dream. Within 6 months, they were living on the streets with their children. And the children had gone from, you know, the normal clothing that we buy our kids, we want the best for them we possibly can, to being children that had nothing. They had 1 suitcase, and they had almost no money to work with. So the homeless are really not the picture that I had of schizophrenic, of people that wouldn't take their medication, of people that were drug and alcohol addicted. Those folk are out there, but so often the drug problems and the alcohol problems develop after they're homeless because they're trying to kill the pain of loneliness. They're trying to kill the pain of their friends walking away from them, of not having the care and support that they need. A video that we'll be showing in just a few minutes. It's from a group in Atlanta. We had a group of our staff that drove down one night, about 7 or 8 hours, took a load of blankets down. We place about 110 to 120,000 blankets a year for the homeless and the disaster relief. So they took blankets and other supplies down to work with a group that's called 3O We Go. They're just outside of Atlanta, and 3O We Go means that they have a data bank and they can send out all kinds of notices to people that want to work with the homeless. And when the temperature gets down to 30 degrees, they go out and take blankets and winter clothing and supplies so that the homeless can make it through the cold times. And so 3O We Go is a magnificent group of Christian people that are reaching out. So that there are a number of groups across the United States that simply work with the homeless, but there's a lot more need out there than is being met. So let me just offer some suggestions of ways that, as a local church, that you can get involved. In every county, in every local community, the social services have a responsibility of going out and finding out who these homeless people are. So they are a major resource for you. Salvation Army is a great group to talk to because they minister to the homeless every single day. There are feeding centers throughout your community that provide food for people who simply don't have anything to eat. And if you talk to these groups, you can find out what the homeless need. I was amazed that one of the greatest needs beyond the blankets and the winter wear to keep them warm in extreme cold weather are reading glasses. We have provided tens of thousands of pair of reading glasses to homeless ministries because people whose glasses are broken, or have vision problems, they can't fill out job applications. So having a pair of reading glasses may simply change their life, that one thing alone. We found out that when we started working with the homeless that having athletic socks is one of the most valuable things you can give them. You can collect athletic socks from the local stores. They're fairly inexpensive. They can be used as gloves. They can be used on their feet to keep them warm. They can be used on their head to keep them warm. They can put their personal possessions in athletic socks. Remember, the homeless are on the road every day going somewhere, so they don't have a place where they can keep their personal possessions, and a pair of athletic socks can be the place where they keep those. So one of the ways that you can really help is to contact social services, contact the local feeding programs, the Salvation Army, and be able to provide supplies that they can give out. Another way to do it is to be able to go to these feeding centers and go to the Salvation Army and give them a night off. These people are worn out. They're doing this 7 days a week, often providing 2 meals a day to anyone in the community that needs help, and they need volunteers. The thing that we did, and it really changed my life, and it was the preface to being able to start Gleaning for the World, is that we decided to get the people in the church together. We made the beef stew, we had the cakes and the pies and the cookies, and we had sandwiches. We made enough to be able to go to 5 different locations and just tell the people, take the night off, relax, enjoy, go spend time with your family. And we fed the people. We sat down beside them, we talked to them, and it totally changed our church. Because the people we'd walked around became personal to us. Another way is to go out of the community, and this is really getting hands-on. And again, I do recommend that you, if you're going to be using teenagers and women in particular, that you work with your social service, you work with the Salvation Army to find out who the people are that you can go where you can be safe. Because many of these people are scared of the outsiders because they've lived in the homeless lifestyle and they really have learned not to trust a lot of people. Most of them will be more than glad to take the supplies that you can give, to have someone come talk to them, because no one really recognizes the homeless as an individual. So being able to go out and under the bridges where they live, the abandoned buildings, the abandoned cars, being able to go out to these people and just sit down and talk to them. Give them a copy of the scriptures. Let them know that there's someone that still cares about them. Let them know that they have a Savior whose name is Jesus Christ, who was born a homeless person. Born in Bethlehem for the first 2 or 3 years of his life, he was homeless. Before Joseph and Mary took him back, and where Joseph was a carpenter. But the story of the birth of Christ is a God who sent a son to this world who was and is, that if you look at the first 2 or 3 years of his life and the last 3 years, that's about 5 years of Jesus' life where he was homeless. And for the homeless to know that God sent his son that was homeless, that still loves and cares about them, can make all the difference in the world. We want to go to our question and answer period and be able to share, give you the chance to ask questions about this. The homeless ministry, I can tell you from my own personal experience, the homeless ministry is the most significant, dynamic thing that will happen to you in your personal life. It literally changed me. I will never forget one young lady that we were just walking through this homeless center. They had about 200 or 300 people, and this one young lady, about 18 years old, who was mentally challenged, mentally disabled. She had a brand new baby that was about 2 weeks old. She was literally carrying the baby by its arm. And I looked at it, and you know, being a father of 2 children, I was petrified by what I saw. And I reached out, and she let me catch a hold of the baby. She wanted us to take her picture. So I got the folk with me to take a picture of me with the 18-year-old and the brand new baby. And I turned to the lady that was running the home, and I asked her, I said, what in the world is going to happen to this baby? What's going to happen to this 18-year-old who had been sexually molested on the street because her parents had thrown her out? And the comment was, you know, we can keep her for 4 weeks. And by law, we have to let her keep the baby. And probably in the next couple of months, we'll find the baby dead on the street. And I couldn't believe that the legal issues that were faced could not be overcome, to where some family could have raised that infant rather than losing that infant. The life on the street for the homeless is not a pretty sight. It is not fun. It is cold in the wintertime. It is hot in the summertime. It's a place without showers. It's a place where people are not able to have money to get a haircut or to keep themselves clean to where they can go get a job. Once you become homeless, you get into a situation where it just continues to go downhill and downhill. And if someone doesn't step in and help them transition from going downhill to going uphill, they will simply live that way for the rest of their life. So getting involved with the homeless is going to help the homeless, but more than that, it's going to transform the life of the people in your church that reach out and touch them. It's going to help your people become stronger in their outreach ministry, stronger in their witness, stronger in wanting to care about people that are hurting. It'll help them learn how to just love people as Christ has loved them. So it will transform your church. It will change you as a person, but it will transform your church. So I highly recommend that you look in your own community, find out who the people are in need, and see if you can help them. Now we'll go to our question and answer time, so that if you have questions that we can answer, feel free to use the net and be able to come back to us, because it's more important that we answer your questions than you keep hearing me talk.
Ron, we love to hear you talk. That's the fun part of it, and what a powerful testimony you have too regarding all of that. What we want to do right now is Andrew prepared a great video to try and explain to folks and give them some insight into this 3-0 We Go. You mentioned the 3-0 We Go ministry in Atlanta, and basically the 3-0 We Go is when it gets to be 30 degrees, there's a whole system in place where individuals are texted to be notified that we're meeting at 6 p.m. and you're going to come and get a blanket, shoes, whatever, and you're going out to help the homeless people because of the temperatures. It's called 3-0 We Go. So we're going to go to this 2-minute video, then we'll be back with question and answers.
Well, I would say 3-0 We Go is it's a homeless rescue program, cold weather homeless rescue program. And we're going out to assist the people who are out on the streets at night. After 7 o'clock, the shelters close. And so we're going out later when people are starting to bed down, and they're out of options at this point. And so we're going out on the sub-freezing nights, so 30 degrees or below, to provide them supplies to help them make it through the night. And if they already have some supplies, we're going to provide them some hand warmers, some other things to make them more comfortable.
What we do is we go on routes where we know people are kind of in a hot spot, or a hub, if you will, where there's a congregation of people. And what we do is when we arrive at one of these locations, we hop out and we go and we visit with the people. You'll see everything from people that are laying down, have already created a bed. They have, a lot of times what we call is they're cocooned in. They've put a blanket over their head. And then everything from people in that status to people that are up walking around. Maybe some of those folks are unprepared and they wouldn't have, for instance, I can remember just 2 nights ago when we went, there were some gentlemen out that didn't even have gloves on their hands. They couldn't feel their own hands, honestly. And so we were able to provide gloves and give them some hand warmers to create recirculation for them.
So we like to say we're the warm people when we're out there. We're not giving out food or other things. We do the warm stuff. And so when you think about that, you got socks. Tonight, for example, it's been raining today. So we might actually do some sock changing for them and help them change out socks if their feet are wet. And put some foot warmers on them. Also, hand warmers are very helpful to them. A lot of times they have poor circulatory issues and their hands hurt from the cold. But we also gloves, hats, and of course the blankets. And the blankets being the big thing, that these blankets are so big and thick and useful that we can really cocoon them up and wrap them up, give them several blankets and wrap them up and protect them from the wind, protect them from the elements, and get them some heat in there to help them get through the night. So it's, and you're going to find that they're very appreciative, extremely appreciative, because there is no other group that's meeting this little niche need of this wintertime rescue, late night rescue.
So that's the ministry 3-0 We Go in Atlanta, and again, just an idea, an example of what some folks are doing to try to impact their city, and it's something you can do. You know, it's always about getting somebody in your congregation who has a passion for that particular ministry, who could head it up for you and really lead the charge and could rally other people. So I'd certainly be on the lookout for that kind of person in your congregation who would have a passion for that. Ron, we have some questions, and of course you can email us questions. You can go on the Facebook group page and send us questions. You can also use the service right to the right of this video window. Type in your question right now. We'd love to answer those for you. One question we have is, my congregation wants to get involved in a homeless ministry. Give us some advice on getting started.
Well, Mike, as we talked about, the first thing is go get information. I can almost guarantee you that if you're around a major city, even a city of 30 or 40,000 people, there are homeless. And there are also people who may not be homeless, but they don't have enough food to eat, they don't have clothes to wear. Getting information from your local schools, the teachers know who the children are that are coming to school that have not had anything to eat all weekend. Your social services people can assist you, the Salvation Army. The key to it, I think, is finding out your comfort zone. Do you want to just collect supplies and provide them to the Salvation Army and other locations that can use them? Or do you want to take the supplies in and actually hand them out to the homeless yourself? You may want to ease your way in by first doing the supplies, and then if you're comfortable going to the next step. Again, every church is going to have a comfort level. It's not just something that you can do as a pastor. As Mike has said, there are people in your church, given the opportunity, given the knowledge of who the homeless are, that may decide they want to do this. The last church that I pastored, we had about 20 that would go out and work with the homeless. Many of the other people in the church just went out and bought stocking hats for $1 and gloves and things, and gave them to them to hand out. So you know, part of your congregation can spend a few dollars to buy supplies. Part of them may decide they want to go out and meet the homeless and be able to witness to them. But every church can be involved in doing something to help the homeless.
Ron, another question this person asks is just about the safety of the congregation and the members. And I know a lot of young people, college kids, are really excited about helping these kinds of causes, and it's a way to really rally your young people together to do something good. But there's always the concern about safety, especially if you're going into downtown or you're going into certain areas of your community that might not be as safe. What do you advise churches to consider or look into as it relates to providing security for their members to try to reduce any kind of risk of harm or whatever?
I had a youth group that wanted to go out, and their innocence could have got them in trouble. What you really need to do is always have some people with you that can provide security. If you go to the local police department and just say, hey, we're going out and do a homeless work, we're going to give supplies out, can you have one of your officers in plain clothes that can be there? And they can do it. Now, we need to understand that only about 1% to 2% of the 5.6 million homeless are going to be in danger at all. Okay, so we're not talking about the majority of them, but you never know when you may run into one or two people that are having emotional problems. So the best thing to do is, when you go to the social service, Salvation Army, the feeding centers and others, ask them what the best and the safest way, and they can tell you because they work with this every day. But don't let the desire to do good and the innocence of doing good end up getting someone hurt. Again, it's a very small minority of the homeless that will be in danger to you people at all, but you always have to be certain that someone is there that can provide protection So if you do run into that person, or you run into a gang member or whatever, because a lot of these people are in downtown areas, you just need to make certain that you have some protection with you.
Okay, Ron, another question. Our congregation partners with a sister congregation to help homeless people in our community. Can we acquire blankets and other supplies from Gleaning for the World to hand out? How do we do that?
Well, we work with a government program, and we handle about 110 to 125,000 blankets a year. The blankets go to disaster relief. They go to the homeless ministries across the United States. You can get blankets from us. All you have to do is pay the shipping to get it to you. We can provide. We had one church recently that got 200 or 300 blankets to hand out to a smaller community. We've gotten others that have gotten tractor trailer loads, which is about 4,800 blankets per load. We can provide the blankets if you can just pay the shipping to get them there. But again, there's so many things that the homeless need. Pop-top lunch type food that a child would take to school with them, or that an adult would take to work with them. That type of thing can be purchased for about $1 a can. The reading glasses, the winter wear. You can get stocking hats for $1. You can get gloves for a couple of dollars. Your congregation can provide a lot of supplies you need, but if you want blankets that are made for the homeless that are extremely warm, just get in touch with Gleaning for the World. You can Google us, gftw.org, and we'll provide any number of blankets that you need.
Ron, one thing I'm always taken back by when I've read your book and just hear you talk is just the whole idea that we're really all one tragedy away from being homeless. We sort of live in an environment where we have family that can sort of come in and provide a safety net for us, or maybe friends, or maybe even our congregation, or maybe we're financially secure today. But just anything could happen and cause, in your book, that we're actually giving away free. I told you we'd give you something free. Ron provides just a lot of stories of just how people end up in a homeless situation. It can be very inspiring for you and your congregation. It certainly was for me when I read it. So we want to give you this book free, no obligation at all. All you got to do is just give us your mailing address so we can obviously mail it out to you. It's I think it came out about 8 months ago now. It's 130 pages, just great reading, some pictures, the history of course, you said I did it his way. It's all about the story of Gleaning for the World, and it started and impacts the homeless. So all you got to do, go to your email and just email us, info@gftw.org, info@gftw.org. Just say, hey, I was watching the pastor's briefing, I want to get that free book, and just give us your address and we'll mail it out to you today. You can also call us if that's easier for you to do. I'll give you the phone number real quick if you want to jot it down. It's 434-993-3600, 434-993-3600, or again, email us, info@gftw.org. This has been a fascinating topic, and a lot of churches are impacted by the homeless. Some just walk in off the street right into the church and have needs, and you try to figure out, you want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. You don't want to encourage it, but you want to help people get to the next step and get out of that situation. And just some great practical advice on how to do that. And Gleaning and Ron, I know, are always available to help you in whatever way, so feel free to see Gleaning as a resource. I know, Ron, you answer any questions if people want to call you or email you. And we just are about doing God's work and trying to have an impact. Our next pastor's briefing is going to be on January 15th at 10 a.m. Eastern, so mark your calendars for that. And remember, there's an archive of all of the pastor's briefings we've done so far, topics on ISIS and Ebola, and of course now this homeless topic, and we'll have others as we move forward. Feel free to access those anytime. Valuable information as you update your congregation. For Ron and for our entire group here at Gleaning for the World, we thank you for being with us and hope you have a good day.